Hello, welcome back to Blender Social Live Noding. In this episode, we're gonna try to create this kind of structure. It looks like a pine or maybe like a Christmas tree. I don't know, but I check it out. This is the pine cones. It looks kind of similar to that structure, more or less, or like pineapple as well. Um, So yeah, you can approach this in many different ways, but this is kind of a very interesting kind of setup. It's actually pretty simple. I'll start with something like a cylinder inside Sverchok Add-On. So cylinder and sphere, actually, if you look closely, there's this special kind of a feature. It's called separate. Not many people knows this. Maybe I think a Sverchok developer knows this. It separates. It's hard to explain, but basically, if you use separate with something like UV connection, you can get something quite interesting. I'll show you real quick. So by default, cylinder give you a cylinder, and you can turn off the caps, and you get this thing. And if you turn on separate, this guy suddenly become like this. It's kind of like, I think, separating every ring. And if I plug the vertices into this guy right here, UV connections, and have a look, by default UV connection actually have this slice turn on. It gives you this, and you can try the V. So V give you that, UV give you this edge, and I think this is the one that's most useful. It's kind of like suddenly you have this kind of like disc or circle that made up the cylinder. I'll save this real quick. So this is SV pine structure, and with this guy looking like this, you can perhaps use something like separate loose parts. This is kind of like a trial and error, I think, but see, you suddenly have these 5 different parts. If you bake it, you have this 5 ring, no, not ring, like a disc or a circle. And these guys still can be controlled using radius top and radius bottom, just like a cylinder. And you can have like a almost like a Christmas tree if you actually use extrusion, extrude region, extrude separate. I think I like the extrude separate faces. And let's have a look. Increase the height, and you get this. Suddenly you have like a cake. The cake has this same distance between the disc, so that's another way you can generate something like a pyramid. Yeah, I think that's looking more or less like a pyramid. And you can of course use another extrude separate faces, and you end up with something like a pine. Let me try. I actually discovered this by accident. So let's try this. It's more or less looking like a pine. Maybe it's not like perfect, but can be useful. Let's see. Let me play around with the height. So that's looking like a Christmas tree sort of. You know, even with this design, you can perhaps print it out, and it's become like a coat hanger. It's an idea right there. Radius top, radius bottom. Play around with the height. You can increase or decrease the subdivisions. That's, yeah, looking like a pine or pineapple, even though it's a bit linear, more or less. I think I quite like this. Let me check. I think if you use the extruded poly, see, this looks like a Christmas tree sort of. Okay, that's also interesting. Yeah, I'll keep this both. If you kind of want to spin this guy a little bit, for every level. You can use the matrix Euler, I believe, matrix Euler, and plug this into this guy, and you can sort of rotate it in the z-axis. So just use range float and plug this there. We have 6. Okay, give it 6 count and rotate it like 180 degree maybe. So this becoming like, suddenly you have something that looks like a Fibonacci. It's not really Fibonacci. If you're, I think 137.5 is Fibonacci kind of rotation. And you can increase this. Okay, make it 8. So we have 10. Give it 10. So yeah, that's how we can generate this pine looking kind of structure, like so. Yeah, something like that. It can be less linear actually. Right, currently it's just, you know, very linear. If you make a little bit of changes, you can get a more like curve, so you can get this kind of pine looking structure maybe, but the top is not totally perfect, but I think this is interesting anyway. Yeah, it's very Sverchok kind of setup. So I'll just gonna save this SV Pine. Maybe you will use this at some point. Maybe this can be useful, because really you can, if you make changes to this guy and make adjustment, you might get quite an interesting structure very quickly. And it is pretty clean actually. If I bake it, we have like 10 objects, but you can always combine them together if you like. I don't know, I think this is interesting. You can always extrude it and make it slightly differently. But there you go. That's like a pine-like structure using Sverchok add-on and using Blender. Hopefully you'll find this useful. Let me know what you think, and any question, just let me know in the comment section below. Thanks again for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video.